The rise of the wake-up movement in Africa and Latin America, a challenge to neoconservatives and globalists. In recent years, a wake-up movement has been gaining momentum across Africa and Latin America, challenging the long-standing dominance of neoconservatives and globalists who have historically shaped the geopolitical landscape. At the forefront of this awakening is a growing resistance against a perceived cabal, allegedly sponsored by elite families such as the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, who are believed to sit at the apex of global power structures. This movement represents a pushback against centuries of exploitation and a demand for a new world order that values fairness, sovereignty, and mutual respect. As France, the United States, and the United Kingdom lose influence in Africa to China, Russia, and Turkey, and with organizations like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, challenging the supremacy of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, a seismic shift is occurring in global power dynamics. The decline of Western dominance in Africa and Latin America. For decades, Western powers, led by the United States, France, and the UK, have maintained significant influence in Africa and Latin America. Their strategies, however, have often been marked by exploitation, economic dependency, and political manipulation. Colonial and post-colonial policies in Africa, for instance, were primarily designed to extract resources while keeping local populations impoverished and dependent. This relationship continued in various forms throughout the 20th century, with Western powers using foreign aid, debt traps, and political interference to maintain control. However, a new wave of political consciousness is emerging. In Africa, countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and the Central African Republic have recently expelled French military forces and severed diplomatic ties, citing disillusionment with decades of French interference that failed to bring peace, prosperity, or real independence. In Latin America, countries such as Venezuela, Bolivia, and Cuba have resisted U.S. influence, nationalizing key industries and rejecting neoliberal economic models imposed by Western institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. China, Russia, and Turkey, new players in the African arena. As Western influence wanes, China, Russia, and Turkey are stepping in to fill the void, offering an alternative model of engagement based on mutual benefit and respect for sovereignty. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, has brought massive infrastructure investments to African and Latin American countries, focusing on building roads, railways, ports, and power plants. Unlike Western aid, which often comes with political conditions, Chinese investments are seen as less intrusive and more aligned with local development goals. Russia, too, has been reasserting its presence in Africa, particularly through security cooperation and energy projects. The recent Russia-Africa summit highlighted a renewed interest in deepening ties with the continent, with many African leaders openly calling for a multipolar world order. Turkey, meanwhile, has expanded its diplomatic and economic footprint in Africa, opening embassies, launching trade initiatives, and providing humanitarian aid. These new partnerships reflect a broader shift towards a more multipolar world where African and Latin American countries seek to diversify their alliances and reduce dependency on any single power. This shift is causing alarm in Western capitals, as it challenges their historical dominance and undermines their ability to dictate global economic and political norms. BRICS and the SCO, challenging the US dollar's supremacy. The rise of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, further complicates the geopolitical landscape. Both organizations are actively working to create an alternative to the Western-led global financial system, with particular emphasis on reducing dependency on the US dollar. BRICS nations have discussed creating a new currency for international trade, while the SCO has promoted local currency use in bilateral trade agreements. These moves pose a direct threat to the US dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, which has been a cornerstone of American economic dominance. The dollar's privileged position allows the United States to run large deficits and exert immense financial influence worldwide. However, with countries like China and Russia pushing for de-dollarization, there is a real possibility that the global financial order could be fundamentally reshaped in the coming years. The end of Western exploitation, a reckoning long overdue. The wake-up movement in Africa and Latin America is rooted in a profound realization. The Party for the West and its globalist allies cannot last forever. For centuries, Western powers have exploited the world without giving back, implementing policies that kept their former colonies poor, dependent, and subservient. Even in the 21st century, this exploitation has continued through mechanisms like unfair trade practices, environmental degradation, and the imposition of crippling debt. Yet, the Global South is no longer willing to accept this status quo. The rising assertiveness of countries in Africa and Latin America reflects a growing awareness of the need for a new global order, one that values equality, justice, and mutual benefit over exploitation and dominance. The West's naivety in assuming that its hegemony would remain unchallenged forever is now being exposed, as new alliances and partnerships emerge that offer alternative paths to development and prosperity. Conclusion: a new era of global awakening. The Wake Up movement in Africa and Latin America represents a critical turning point in global history. It signals the end of a unipolar world dominated by Western neoconservatives and globalists, and the rise of a multipolar world where countries have greater agency to determine their own futures. As the influence of traditional Western powers fades and new actors like China, Russia, and Turkey take center stage, we are witnessing the dawn of a new era. One where the Global South is no longer content to play a subordinate role but is instead demanding a seat at the table and a fair share of the world's wealth and opportunities. This movement is not just a geopolitical shift but a call for a more just and equitable world order. It challenges the long-standing exploitation by Western powers and the cabals that support them, asserting that the time has come for true independence, dignity, and mutual respect. The world is waking up, and the message is clear. The old party is over, and a new world is being born.